Hey there everybody, it's markcrilley. I'm back with another video. Today I'm doing a question and answer video, number 33 in my ongoing series of such videos. I haven't done one for quite a long time, so my apologies. Hopefully we'll get back into the groove of doing these videos regularly, where I ask or have my viewers ask me questions and I provide the answers. And usually while I answer the questions, I'm doing some sort of drawing, just so you have something to look at. And today I have decided to do quite an unusual illustration. I want to do a picture of a corgi lying down on top of a piece of sushi. Don't ask me why I want to do such a drawing. It just sort of popped into my head and I thought, I gotta do this. Maybe it's because they look a little bit like the salmon sushi to me when they're lying down on the floor with that sort of orange color. Anyway, who knows how my bizarre brain works, but let's go ahead and get into the first question. This one from L Art. What art mediums have you not tried? Well, there's going to be an awful lot. No one can have tried all of them. I was lucky, though, in college that I took classes that allowed me to do a lot of things that you certainly would not have seen me work in with these YouTube videos, such as sculpture. I took a sculpture class and, carving things out of stone and stuff like that. I took a ceramics class. I took a printmaking class, in which I did a lot of traditional printmaking. Of course, drawing, oil painting, all of that stuff. So I'm very lucky that way. But, let's say welding a sculpture out of steel, certainly have never done anything like that, although I did have a chance just one time to do a kind of wax sculpture that, they made a model from it, or a mold from it, I should say. And then that mold was turned into a bronze sculpture. So I even had that as an opportunity. And I thought this might be a fun time to bring back this thing that I did in the 90s. I showed it in a video one time before, but a friend of mine hired me to design this picture frame, actually a series of different picture frames like this. It was a company in Japan, and they put them into production, and they were sold in gift shops throughout Japan for a number of years in the 90s. I would be honestly surprised if any of them are still in production today, but that was fun. Another thing I would say that I have not done so much of is oil pastel. It's quite a common medium that for whatever reason I find it hard to work in. You'll see me use the more dry pastels. And beyond that, the more you get into sculptural things, 3D printing, unfortunately I haven't had the chance to work in that kind of thing. But thanks for that question, and forgive me if I haven't given a completely thorough answer. But let's move on to number 2 from Susel Lee. Have you ever made a collaborative comic book? Well, why, yes, I have. Let me go ahead and show you one where I did, in fact, work together with another artist. So back in the 90s, DC Comics made this special collection of short comic book stories, mainly sort of funny stories, using popular DC Comics heroes. And I worked together with a very talented writer, illustrator, Andy Watson. He's from England, and he wrote this story, Wonder Girl versus Wonder Tot. Interestingly, we had Wonder Woman come out last year, so this is kind of timely. But you can see I did not write this story, I just did all the artwork, and I suppose I should also credit the colorist here, Lee Lowridge, who added all the colors to this comic. But that was the one time I had the experience of not writing it, but just doing the artwork. And then we switched places on this other one where I did the writing, and Andy did the art. So I wrote this story about the Atom, one of my favorite DC comic book superheroes when I was a kid. And I wrote the story and handed it off to Andy, and he did all the artwork. And so that was quite an interesting experience, and truly the only time, really, in my whole career where I have done such a collaborative work. Hopefully I'll get the chance to do another such project, but let's move on. So question number 3 here comes from Gabby Gershom Bassi. Do you have advice for someone trying to get an art scholarship? I think I might have answered this question once before, but I wanted to go ahead and get it in here again for anyone who missed that earlier video. It's a very important question for people who are trying to compete for an art scholarship. I had the experience back when I was in high school of trying to get a scholarship, an art scholarship, to Kalamazoo College. And there was only one scholarship offered per year, so it was fairly competitive. And my art teacher at that time advised me to have a wide variety of things within my portfolio, or stuff that I was going to be showing them. So I had, the usual drawings and stuff like that, but then I had a sculpture, I had an oil painting. She said, you show them that you're capable of doing lots of different things. Don't show too much of just one thing. And indeed I did. And she also said, artwork of different sizes, so I brought in some really quite large pieces. And I remember going to Kalamazoo College, and my parents and I went over there with the car just sort of filled with all this different stuff. And even as I brought in the work, and it took several trips to bring it all in, the other people were looking at me like, you jerk, you had to do it, didn't you? You brought all this stuff in. But, I wanted that scholarship, and so hopefully that advice still applies today, that having a wide variety of things, and also different materials, different sizes, just shows them what you're capable of. And just figure, be tough on yourself. Don't show anything that is the slightest bit weak. It's just got to be your very best stuff. This is your one shot. Anyway, don't show them a corgi on a piece of sushi. A corgushi, as I am calling it. Or is it a sushorgi? I'm not sure. You guys tell me which it should be. Let's move on to, oh my God, it's Barry. Oh my God, it's Barry. Question number 4. If the anatomy isn't correct, but it still gets your point across, is the artwork still acceptable? I say it is, and the proof is out there. We see lots of different published work where the anatomy is less than perfect, but the story is really good, or the characters are really interesting, and that's all it takes. When you ask, is something acceptable, by definition, it's going to be acceptable to some people and unacceptable to others. There is no, uniformity of opinion on these things. What I would say, as I think about it, is that when it is obvious that you are trying for anatomical perfection and you fail a little bit, then it somehow it stands out. You know what I mean? When everything else is real close to being perfectly anatomically accurate, and just you put the hand in a position that is physically impossible, it sort of stands out. Whereas someone who's going completely cartoony, they can get away with all kinds of, it's just clear that they're not trying for anatomical accuracy. So I would say once you start heading down the road, if your goal is true anatomical perfection, you really are holding yourself to a high standard, and you have to just carry that all the way through. So yeah, by all means, if your instincts are cartoony, don't worry about the anatomy being perfect. Very often I do think the storytelling in the end matters more than the perfection, the so-called perfection of the artwork. Here we are with question number 5 from Kyra Onion. How do you decide if you're good enough to do art for a living? This one kind of flows naturally from that last question, this idea of something being acceptable. Are you good enough? I thought it was the way the question was phrased is sort of like, how do you decide if you are good enough? Is it your decision? In a way, the world will tell you if you're good enough. The key is to try. Now, I suppose the question that you have control over is, when do you attempt to get work published, or when do you reveal your work to the world, and maybe you hold off and don't show it until it's professional looking, And that, again, professional looking, what does that mean? It's so hard to define. what that means, and everyone has a different definition, but I guess it's like you know it when you see it. You know what I mean? You see something like, that doesn't quite look professional to me. That looks sort of like it could have been done by a very talented high school or college student, but it doesn't look like it was quite ready for prime time, you know? So I would say that's the thing maybe that you have control over, is when do you show this stuff to people versus when do you hold on to it. I didn't really get my work out there into the world until I was 25 in terms of trying to get paid. And even then, I mean, I did a piece of work that didn't get published until I was more like 27 or something like that. But that's just because of the weird approach to my early life where I went off and taught English and did different stuff like that. Suffice to say, I didn't start showing work until I felt it was of publishable quality, professional looking. Let's go on to number 6. In one of my studio courses at university, we started discussing the question, can an artist make whatever they want, even if that art is racist, homophobic, or overall offensive? Probably the most serious-minded question that I'll be answering here today, but I thought it was an excellent question. I think an artist is free to make whatever they want, but they have to face up to the consequences, I would say, in my opinion. The responses that you're going to get. And if you are going to make work that is sort of reprehensible in my eyes, absolutely anything that is racist or homophobic, anti-feminist, all of these things to me, you better be ready for the response that you're going to get from the people who are going to be, deeply offended by that. Art, in a way, you would be creating artwork that is attacking a person's very being, almost, when you do artwork like that. So certainly, I am against the idea of someone doing that, but people, again, you're free to do what you want to do, short of hurting people, right? And that could become an issue. If someone says, I'm working on this art project that involves me, throwing bricks at random people, well, you're up against the law at that stage as an artist. Once you are doing something illegal, you have to face the consequences. So that's basically what I would say. I think we live in a society that values freedom of speech, and so you don't want to get into no, you shouldn't even be allowed to say such things, It's a tricky thing. And we find ourselves in today's society sort of up against it every day in terms of people who want to march in the streets presenting a certain point of view that is, rightly reviled by the vast majority of humanity. But we say, well, if we believe in freedom of speech, maybe they have a right. I don't know. It's tricky stuff. And I don't have all the answers. Let's move on to number 7 here from Jake the Snake. Do you often work on more than one book project at a time, or do you tend to focus on just one? I am very much a one project at a time kind of a guy, I gotta say. When at all possible, I want to just focus on, a single book, let's say, and move on to the next one. Now, what happens sometimes when you're a professional is that you finish one book, but you haven't finished, say, the cover art, and that's coming very late in the process. So you start the next book, but those people are still coming after you for the cover of that previous book that you were largely done with. And so in that sense, they overlap a little. But I've never worked on 2 books simultaneously, and that's just the way I am. I know a lot of people can. But that's my personal preference, really, I really want to zoom in on it and focus real close on one book, give it all the attention it deserves, finish it, and then move on to the next one. Hang on, I'm going to start adding some color to my CORGI. All right, before I do the color, though, I'm going to go ahead and move on to this next question because it involves me showing something to you. Do you warm up before a drawing or just jump into it? This question from Angel Drawing Studio. Warming up before drawing is never something that I have done very much of. I know a lot of people they do these warm-up drawings, and then they move on to what they're really working on. I'm more of the guy who does like preparatory work. Like this is preparatory sketch for a double-page illustration in Brody's Ghost. You can see it's showing the sort of perspective of an aerial view with this train heading off into the distance. And over here I have Brody's Ghost, so I can show you the finished published illustration, and you can see the difference, huge difference really, between the published illustration and the preparatory work. I did not work out the entire thing beforehand. I got the basics of the perspective worked out, and then I just jumped in and started making the final art. That's my approach. I want to keep it fresh. I don't want to have every single thing resolved in the rough version before I start working on the final, because it's kind of dead to me at that point. There's no thrill of discovery. So that's just my approach. And so in a way, I would say that's my warm-up, I guess, when I'm doing my preparatory work. No, I've never been the kind of person who does so much of the warm-up illustration. Hang on, I got to mix up just the right shade of orange. Okay, so I've got a nice shade of orange for doing my corgi's fur here, and I'll go ahead and maybe I'll just do the head to begin with before I jump into my next question. Hope you're enjoying this illustration. Every once in a while I just have to give in to my random goofy impulses and do something weird. Who knows, maybe I could turn it into a t-shirt. Would you wear a t-shirt like this? Let me know in the comment section. Alright, so here's the question from Eternal Seito. In today's fame-crazed world, how does one keep a healthy mindset of just drawing without the pressure of thinking if anyone's noticing your work or not? This really is, I think, an excellent and timely question in terms of the kind of world that we live in now with social media, and the degree to which almost everything people do, it seems, is put onto Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, and it can then be measured by views and likes and all this stuff. And yeah, it's a different world, isn't it? Certainly from the one that I grew up in, where you were free to sort of grow on your own as an artist without anyone else seeing it, and without having this numerical measure of validation in the form of the number of views and likes and so forth. And you know, on the one side, I guess I could be like the old guy and say, oh, it was better in the old days. Everything was better in the old days. Sounding like old man time-lapse there, aren't I? I've only got one old man voice, it seems. That's one way of looking at it. But on the other hand, you know, having the ability to have so many people see your work is a motivating thing that might get you off your butt and get you doing stuff. Whereas when I was a kid, you didn't really have that motivating factor so much in terms of, well, you showed it to people that you knew, basically. Otherwise, no one really saw it. So there's kind of a tug of war there. I would say at some point, just watch yourself, especially if you are getting bummed out by lack of views or dislikes or whatever form of feedback is coming to you by way of the internet, and it's depressing you, or it's making you feel like you're worthless or whatever. That's when you really need to pull back and say, hey, what's going on here? You know, my worth as a human being or as an artist is not determined by this number of likes or views or whatever. No, it's going too far when you allow that kind of thing to make you depressed or feel that you're no good. Because it really shouldn't be like that as an artist. You know, ideally you're doing this for the pleasure of just doing it, of creating it. And it's nice to be able to get positive feedback, but it does seem a shame to me sometimes that we've come to this point of, especially likes, you know. Oh, look how many likes I got. You know, it seems a little sad somehow that things can be reduced to that. But again, this is one of those ones where I don't have the answers. I've kind of gone through it myself, with YouTube, and I know what it's like. There's the highs, right? There's the thrill of, oh my gosh, I got like millions of views, And then when you don't get millions of views, it flips around and you're like, nobody likes me, And it's just, you can't allow yourself to get caged in by that kind of stuff. I would say pull the plug, go for a walk, get away from it periodically, and then maybe you can come back at it with a more balanced perspective. And we come up now to number 10 from Vala Fantastic. Will you try another totally new style for a graphic novel sometime in the near future? Indeed, I will. And I am about to begin work in the months ahead on a new graphic novel project that will indeed be in a new style. I'm not going to say a drastically new style that's entirely different from anything I've ever done before, but certainly will not look like the style that I used for Brody's Ghost or Miki Falls or the drawing lesson. So unfortunately, I have to be kind of a tease as I answer this question and tell you, yes, I will be doing it, but I can't say too much more about it. I would say if you are hoping for another Brody's Ghost or another Miki Falls, you maybe should not hope too hard, because it's not going to be like those. And it might have I guess I can say it'll have a little more of a true-to-life feeling to it. The whole vibe of the project is going to be a little less fantasy, a little more real life. And maybe I should leave it at that. But I'm very excited about it, working with very high-caliber people, and unfortunately, the way the publishing world works, it won't be coming out for quite a long time. I mean, like I said, I haven't started making the actual book yet, but even when I'm done with it, I think very often it's like a year or so before it comes out. Anyway, I will hopefully be able to give you more detailed updates on that in the months ahead. But let me go ahead and kick this into time-lapse to finish, or not completely finish, but add a lot more color and so forth, and then we'll be back to do the ever-popular lightning round questions. So bear with me as I finish up the coloring. Okay, well, I've got enough of the coloring done that I can move on to everyone's favorite part of the question and answer video, and that is, of course, the lightning round. This is where we get into the funnier questions, and often by the end of it, questions that make no sense at all, but I do enjoy answering them. Let's start with a fairly straightforward one from A. Nara. Do you speak with your family in Japanese or English? Mainly English, almost entirely English, but occasionally I'll say a short word or two in Japanese, like "Daijoubu?" or something like that, which is like, "Are you okay?" or, whatever. Certain things can only be said in Japanese, like "itadakimasu," which they say before they eat, or "itterashai," before someone leaves and comes back later on. So yeah, there's going to be a bit of a mix, but I mainly just relax into my own native tongue of English. Let's move on to the next one from Dana Daywood. Have you ever been drawing while everyone else was listening to the teacher? Me? I'm shocked that you would suggest I might do such a thing. Yeah, every once in a while. Actually, the margins of my books filled with doodles. It's a shame I don't have those old textbooks anymore. Let's move on to this one from Taroya Hollis. Which music do you like from Michael Jackson? My favorite one of his is from the Off the Wall era, and if you like his music but have not listened to the Off the Wall album, you really need to get into that one. I think he never was better than he was on that album. Workin' Day and Night, just classic songs. Let's move on to the next one from Spurgeon Roble. When will you make another collab? Well, I am at work already on a new collab. I've done my part of it. I've sent it off to my co-conspirator, and I cannot name who it is, but I will say it is someone I have never done a collaboration video with before, and I'm very excited about it because I think almost all of you have heard this person's name before. Very, very talented artist. Let's go ahead and move on, though. Talk about teasing. Come on, Crilly. You're not going to tell us who it is? No, I'm not going to tell you who it is. Let's move on to this next one. Oh, quite an elaborate one. From Meme Dory. It's the greatest war the land of Crilly has ever had. 3 powerful forces against each other, the lord of the beloved white gouache, the king of the trusty black Prismacolor, the emperor of the mighty pink blushies. Who will win? It's got to be the blushies. Come on, the blushies rule over all the other ones. I'm sorry, it's the mighty pink blushies all the way. Thanks for the time and care you put into constructing that question. Let's move on to this one from Jeremy Grochowalski, maybe? Left Twix or right Twix? Well, those of you who have seen my book, The Realism Challenge, you will know that I just bite through both of them at once. Probably the most shocking and controversial thing that I could ever do. And I think a lot of people just unsubscribed right then when they heard that. They were like, I'm done with you, Crilly. I'm done with you. Where's my next question? It's got to be here somewhere. Number 7. Are you an alien? Where's your spaceship? Now, the second question seems to suggest that the answer to the first one is yes, but I'm here to tell you no. I am not an alien. I want to put an end to these rumors. Of course, if I were an alien, isn't that exactly what I would say? And as for the second question, where's your spaceship? It's in the garage. No, I mean, it's spaceship. I don't have a spaceship. I don't know what you're talking about. I am an ordinary human being person, like the rest of you watching this video. Perhaps we should move on to the next question thing. Here we are with this one from Cheesy Cat. On a scale of 1 to apple, how colorful do you feel? You know, I was thinking if 1 is at the bottom and apple is at the top, I'm close to apple. How about crab apple? Or is it crab apple? Anyway, thank you for that wonderful, wonderful question. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, they're all out of order now. Number 9. What percentage chicken nugget are you? Well, this is an excellent question, and of course I had to do a little preparatory work and work it out using this very carefully worked out system of mathematics, and I came up with a result of 100%. A little surprising, but the numbers don't lie. Let's move on now to the very final question from Edward Sposhi. Number 10, do you like to waltz with potatoes up and down the produce aisle? Well, yes, I do like to waltz with potatoes, but never down the produce aisle. It's always in the frozen food section, maybe the dairy aisle, but you don't want to do it in the produce section because, the other, like the onions get jealous and they want to do the Watusi with you, and then you'll be there all day. So thank you, Edward, for that delightful question. It is time to wind this one down. I never like to end a video without thanking people who have bought my books. I'll just pull out the Chibi, my very latest book. I want to make sure everyone has heard about this one, and I am super, super grateful to anyone who orders it. But for now, let me go ahead and lay down this pencil. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.